Hello, Tyne! Today is the 7-day mark for Nanowrimo, and I just wanted to give you a little recap of what I've been up to and what I've been struggling with so that I can help you if you're struggling with these same things too. This is not my first NaNoWriMo. I've completed several NaNoWriMos very successfully, but this is the first one I'm really struggling with, and I think it's because I didn't have much of a plot going into it. So today I'm going to be talking a lot about plotting, even being like, I am a plotter, but I am kind of pantsing this novel, and it's been making it a lot harder to get the words in every day. So, not off to a great start, but I have a plan in place for this next week, and I'll have that video up hopefully next week, as long as nothing else goes to hell like the rest of my life has been recently. But it's fine. No, that's not what we're here to talk about today. As you can see, it's been extremely good weather out. Just sunny and warm, and I'll just sit with a blanket on my back porch for hours trying to write. But it can also be extremely distracting. Other noises and just wanting to get out in the weather. And I think that's one of the reasons why my word count has been suffering. But also changing up where you are is one of the best things I can do for my writing. I'll tend to dread a specific soundtrack after I've been listening to it while trying to write a particularly difficult part of my book, or even just sitting in the same place will get tiring after a while. I made a video a little while back about creating your perfect writing space, and I adore my writing chair, but sometimes I just need a change of location to get myself back in the mindset of actually, like, I'm here to write. I'm not just watching YouTube videos. I don't have my headphone on so I can listen to something else. I'm putting on some just white noise and I'm going to write. I did set up another room for myself. I tend to like to write in the evenings and at night just because of the sunny weather. It makes me want to get out and do things. And so I moved to an area that's less disturbed in the evening by my roommates and my pets and whatnot, and just sat down there to write for a couple hours. I recorded over 2 hours of content for this video, and it's been edited down significantly, so you can imagine how much time I spent in each of these different places. But like I was saying, for some reason, I just haven't been getting in the words. And sometimes I've been able to sit down and write 3,000 words, 4,000 words in a day. I made a video about that too, because it's not that uncommon of an occurrence for me, so I must be doing something right. But it's something about plotting a story out that just helps me get in the flow and write it so much faster. So I always plot on a whiteboard because it's big and I can write all over it and I can put all my ideas into one space and look between them and bounce between them because I might be a little ADD. And I always start just by putting on some music and wiping down the board with Windex and making it look really nice and clean so that I don't have any distractions when I'm putting my thoughts down. So you might be familiar with this plot structure. You've probably seen it in your high school English class. It's just kind of like rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, or something along those lines. That's not what a real plot looks like. Anything you read, it will not look like that. So I always start by charting mine out with 2 plot twists and kind of having the whole line just be more dynamic to really show the rising action and then falling action and whatnot. And I actually left a part out here, which I'm going to show you guys in just a minute. I also add another line in a different color just underneath the main plot line, and this is the subplot, which for my writing is usually a love interest or something along those lines, because yay, gay romance. And then I go about writing down every plot point that I already know and just kind of penciling it in either at a plot point, a plot twist, the climax, whatever I know. I write the name at the top and then go through whatever Pinterest boards I've made, whatever songs that I've already selected, and scour those for ideas. And sometimes it's really hard to come up with more interesting things, not really knowing where you are going. And so I'll write down everything that initially intrigued me about writing this book. And I feel like this is a really crucial part of that people just look over all the time, because when you're querying two agents, what you're writing down is what initially attracted you to write this novel and what you think that they will get out of reading it. For me, this section usually ends up being a lot of themes or ideas or meanings and less of actual plot points, but plotting for me takes a good chunk of time. So after I write down everything that I know about the book, I have to go and do something else. And so for me, that's usually cleaning, because it's pretty mindless and also pretty productive. And so I just went and started picking up some clothes in my room and whatnot. Just doing something mindless is fantastic for coming up with different plot points and connecting it all in your head and turning it into an actual story. And if that doesn't work, I also have a couple of books that I read, and I also will usually have a companion book, something that I'm reading along with when I'm writing, so that whenever I'm stuck, I can just flip through the pages to wherever I left off and start reading it. These are usually books about writing that are really inspiring or meaningful to me in some way. Last week, I shouted out 7 Steps on the Path of the Writer. This week, I am Novelist Boot Camp, which is written entirely in military lingo and whatnot, and it's really fun and just kind of one of those inspiring things. You'll see that in addition to me having penciled in like the third marks, like first third of the book, middle third of the book, last third of the book, I also erased a part of the plot line and put in a big divot down. This is the dark night of the soul, the time when everything has gone wrong for your character, and oftentimes figuring out exactly what that point is will inspire me, like, oh, this is how the character is going to get out of it, this is what the climax is going to be, this is where it all goes from here. And that's why I feel having a plot twist directly before that, then the dark night of the soul, then the climax is so effective. It kind of creates a false climax, and I believe I even wrote that in because I want it to seem like everything's building towards this one point, everything has been devastated, the character loses everything, and then is able to rise out of the ashes. That is something that I find incredibly powerful and moving in a lot of different books and TV shows and anime and movies and whatnot, so I want to make sure that everyone includes that in their novel. But if you're really struggling to plot anything at all and can't think of a thing, here is my absolute biggest tip. Combine your idea with an entirely different idea. So most of us, when we're writing, will come up with 10 or 20 other book ideas while we're writing this one, and it will just try and steal our interest away. And that's some of the reasons why people do Nanowrimo, is to finish one complete book. I had thought, oh, what if I just wrote this book instead? And I thought, what was so exciting to me about this book? Why did I want to write this other one instead? And I just stole the plot point, the thing I was so interested in. And sometimes it's not even that concrete. When I stuck on a novel a little while ago, one of my good friends told me a tip that they had heard, they hadn't really used it, but it changed everything. And that tip was, when you're stuck on a scene, either add or subtract a character. I had never heard this before, but adding in this other character completely changed the course of the plot from when I was writing it. And I know while I'm plotting that it's going to change. By the time I write the end, it's going to be a different novel with a different story and a different meaning, and so it's probably good for me not to get too attached to this specific plot with these specific characters. But adding in another plot point or another world development or anything like that to your plot will not only change the course of how you're seeing your plot, but it will also add to it and can completely destroy writer's block. And so when you're plotting, maybe take exactly where you're going with a grain of salt and be open to other ideas. And when you are thinking about other novels, take points that you want from that and incorporate it into your writing. I think it's very important to, whenever you come up with a great idea, like, oh, I'm going to have that later in my book, then just put it in right wherever you're writing. Just write it into the script, however. Because it seems like when I'm writing and I'm in the flow, I think of that, and then when I'm finally there to write that scene, I can't come up with anything. But I'll come up with dozens of these, oh, this would be so great moments. I found that it's just very helpful to tie them into the story then, to make it dramatic then, and if it doesn't fit, then when you're editing it later, because I'm sure you're going to edit your draft at least once before you send it out to anyone, then you can move those moments around. Then you can say, actually no, that does go where I thought it went when I started writing it, and move it over. Or maybe you found something even more dramatic to have there, and this point is just helpful for adding to the overall plot. With all of that said though, here is the most important thing that I can tell you about writing, and it is just to sit down and write. You know, I don't plot out scene by scene, I don't spend a ton of time on getting every single motion of the characters perfect. I do edit my sentences a little bit as I'm writing them, but I try to not do that, and when I'm really in the flow, I don't even use spell check. So I recommend you get a fluff muffin. Mine's name is Callie. She is a sweet little angel. She just purrs to no end and will just sit on my lap while I write the whole day, and it is fantastic, and it actually makes me get in a lot more words. My second tip would be to make actual muffins. I like to have a snack or something mindless and repetitive that I do whenever I'm stuck just for a second on my plot, because it seems like I'll get really easily distracted, like, oh, I can't think of what to do in the rest of the scene. I'm gonna go look at YouTube for the next 5 hours. Instead, I can be like, oh, I don't know what to do with the rest of the scene, but I've written quite a bit. I'm gonna go give myself a muffin. And it doesn't have to be a muffin. It can be anything you want, but I like muffins. So I go and get a muffin, and then by the time I come back and have inhaled the muffin, I've usually spent enough time thinking without distraction in order to get back into the flow of writing. And then lastly, research is your friend. Whenever you don't know what to write next, it's probably either you need to backtrack because you've written yourself into a corner, or you need to know a little bit more about where you're going. So having some ideas, like if your character is injured, maybe you need to do a little bit more research into how that injury works to make it more challenging for them wherever you're writing now. Or maybe you need to do a little more research into the emotional state of the character. Another book shout out, The Emotional Thesaurus. Great book, really good for when I'm trying to write very deep emotional scenes without having a ton of character thought impeding the plot. And with those tips, I'm going to let you guys get back to writing. I have something very special planned, and if you stayed this long into the video, let me tell you, I'm going to be doing my own personal writing retreat while still being at home and going to work every day. So if you're interested in that, then please check back next week. Maybe subscribe if you like these videos. I'm going to be trying to put out just writing videos from here on out, and hopefully more frequently. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye!